Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar on early college models in Kentucky. My name is Robin Hebert, and I'm thrilled to have you with us today as we explore three exciting opportunities that help Kentucky students get a head start on their post-secondary journey. Across Kentucky, early college models are empowering students to earn dual credit, which is high school and college credit simultaneously, and some even complete associate's degrees before high school graduation. These programs are reducing barriers for students, they're saving families money, and they're giving students the confidence they need to pursue ambitious career and education goals. You're going to hear a lot about that today. So today we have three fantastic guests joining us to share their expertise and their experience and their great insights on how these very different models work and how they are changing students' lives and even helping to shift school culture. So today we're going to begin the session with Naoma Higgins-Flores from UK's Next Generation Scholars Programs. Then we'll hear from Dan Robbins, who's the principal of Hardin County's EC3 program. And then finally, Dr. Carol Christian from the Craft Academy at Morehead State University will tell us about one of Kentucky's residential early college programs. So throughout today's webinar today, we encourage you to submit questions using the Q&A feature. We'll do our best to get to all those questions in the live session, but if time does not permit us to address all the questions live, we'll follow up today's session with an email to everyone who's participating, and we'll try to address all of your questions and comments. So thank you again for being here and for your commitment to expanding opportunities for Kentucky students. So let's get started. Please join me in welcoming Naoma Higgins-Flores from UK's Next Generation Scholars Program. Now, Naoma has told me that she is a proud first-generation college student, as am I, so congratulations on that, and also the director of the University of Kentucky's Next Generation Scholars Dual Credit Program. In her role, she leads efforts to expand access to higher education with this innovative dual credit network that connects high schools and colleges and communities. I love that part. She's a passionate advocate for access and opportunity, and she is working hard to ensure that more students, and especially those from underserved backgrounds, see themselves in higher education and see themselves succeeding in their academic and career journey. So welcome, Naoma. We're so glad you're here today.
Well, good morning, Robin. Thank you for having me. So glad to have this discussion with you all this morning.
Right. Well, I know that one of the things that makes your program innovative is that it was built largely upon student input. So I would love for you to tell us a little bit about the vision behind UK's Next Generation Scholar Program.
Yes, so UK's dual credit program, which we call the Next Gen Scholars Program, um, was birthed out of the idea and experiences that we had, myself and Dr. Justin Bathen had while working with STEAM Academy in Lexington, Kentucky, and also from prior experience I had had working with students through the Robinson Scholars Program in Eastern Kentucky. And we were thinking about new innovative models, the things that were happening in schools, and wanting really to talk to students and schools about the things that were needed and what were happening. And so, and having conversations with students, something that kept on coming up was their experiences with dual credit. And how important that was in their journeys of them thinking of themselves as college students, and also opening doors to them to things that they didn't think possible, in particular, our students who are first gen, our rural students. And so from that, we thought, well, UK doesn't currently have a dual credit program. We are a land grant institution meant to serve our state. So, how can we do that at the University of Kentucky in a way that can reach out to students? So, we began polling schools, talking to students about how dual credit is currently operated in their buildings, what they like about the current models that are operated, what they don't like, what they would like to see more of. And we started putting the blocks of our program together based upon their input.
I love how you really built your program upon stakeholder input, especially from students. That is very much gets to the feels that I have about dual credit in Kentucky. So, talk a little bit more about what you learned from the students and other stakeholders, and the structural kind of elements in your program that make it kind of innovative compared to other models that you see across Kentucky.
Well, what we learned is that dual credit is very different depending upon what institution that you're offering that is offering it. And so it's done in a variety of ways to give students access and opportunity to that. But from the students, one thing that really stood out to us and really informed our model was they wanted to have a connection with the faculty that were at the institutions. There are a lot of models, and they give great access by providing asynchronous dual credit models to students. But students we talked to were craving the ability to be able to speak with their professors, see their professors, to see other students, and to work in collaboration with other students. And so we built our model so that we utilize technology. However, we utilize it in a way in which courses are live for students, that they can talk to faculty, they can get to know other faculty, and that they can also take courses with students from all over the state and work and collaborate with them as well in a virtual format. And so that was really important to us, really important to students. And we do surveys at the end of the year, and students have given exceptional feedback about how valuable that is to them.
That's awesome. You also talked a little bit with me about how your approach is really about a whole school model, not just like individualized courses. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes. So prior to developing our dual credit program, our program is actually in a center in the College of Education called the Center for Next Generation Leadership. And this center focuses on providing professional development opportunities and growth opportunities for schools who are looking to make systemic change within their buildings in vibrant learning. So thinking about portraits of learners and graduates, developing high levels of student agency, project-based learning, student defenses, those kind of things. And so our model wanted to take the roots of what our center was about and to really think about what are student experiences, not only while they're taking dual credit, but what experiences are happening in their buildings that are propelling them towards that dual credit. So every school that joins our program also has access to professional learning opportunities. So we do after school sprints for 1 hour on things like student agency, developing a portrait of a learner, innovative school models. Those kind of things to help grow the whole school. We also do in-person meetings where schools get to come together and network and talk about what's happening in their buildings and work together and collaborate. And then we also provide tailored professional development. So our schools each year, they get 2 to 4 hours of professional development that we customize for them. And so as schools are thinking about what they want to do holistically, we work with those schools to develop professional development for them, network them with other schools doing it. And then we also are doing this while we're providing dual credit opportunities for students in the building.
Wow. I just love all the intentionality that's built into your program as a whole, that it's not just about delivering that dual credit in a meaningful way for students, but also just how are you building this system that really supports them, throughout their entire journey. And this idea of networking high schools to one another, I bet that's a favorite part for many of them too. Naomi, you told me that you want to open the door broadly for students to imagine themselves as UK Wildcats. And that has just been going through my head since our conversation. So I'd like for you to talk a little bit about how you are opening the door broadly, especially as you recruit and support students, especially from, you've already mentioned ones who are first generation college goers, or maybe students from rural communities, students with disabilities, any of those students who are underrepresented in many of our dual credit experiences. So talk a little bit about that broadly open door that you got.
Yes. So, in thinking about dual credit models and looking at the data of how many of our Kentucky students are taking dual credit and the ambitious goal that CPE put out in front of us to increase dual credit, we really wanted to think about which students are not receiving access to dual credit and why. And so there are a variety of reasons for that. And so we do several things to think about it. And the first thing that we started with were, what are our requirements to be able to take dual credit at UK? And so we looked and modeled and thought about what other dual credit programs were doing. We saw that the state said 2.5, and we said we do not want to put any extra barriers around that. So students can participate in our dual credit courses as long as they have a 2.5 GPA. We do not consider the ACT in that enrollment. And as long as they fill out the application, they have a 2.5 GPA, then they are allowed to take dual credit as long as they're at one of our partner network schools. Opening the door that widely, however, we do know that students need support. And so we intentionally designed all of our dual credit courses to have a human component. So from our collaborating model, in which we have a UK professor zooming in, there's also a certified teacher there who is certified in that content area, who is helping support students in our model so that they're getting on-site tutoring, on-site supplementary instruction. They are having a human in the building who knows them on a very personal level. Something that our high school folks are amazing about is knowing their students and knowing how to support them. That's something that we, being sometimes 4 hours away from our schools, can't necessarily replicate. So relationships and having that person on the ground is super important to us. We also make sure that all of our services that we have on campus for our students are also available to our dual credit students. And we build our orientation so that students know about those resources and that they're available to them. So they have access to our online tutoring, they have access to our mental health services, they have access to our career centers, our libraries. All of those things are built online and packaged for them so they have easy access. Another thing that we did was we made sure that we were really connecting with our Disability Resource Center on campus. And so we built a process just for dual credit students, in which it's really built into their application process. So it's not something additional that they have to do after, but that it's step 3 in our process. Please complete your disability resource form, and we modified it for what high schools would need. So it's really easy to access for students to be able to have that support, and their professors know before the semester even begins how they need to support those students in the classroom.
Wow, that's fantastic. I know that that can be a barrier for a lot of students, having to self-advocate, figure out where is that office and how do I fill out the forms. And so to just integrate that into the process is really smart. One of my favorite things that you told me about the UK Scholars Program is how you try to get as many of these dual credit students onto UK's campus as possible. Can you tell us a little bit about how you all work through that?
Well, this stems from just my selfish love of campus visits. I love to visit college campuses. But in my prior work, working with GEAR Up, working with Talent Search and Robinson Scholars, one of the most powerful things that you can do for a student is to bring them to a college campus. In particular, students who don't really know what college is or don't have family members who have talked to them about college, or it's not a real place for them. And so it's really important to let them be on campuses, see other students there, and experience it. So in our program, we have built it to where we offer a campus visit every year for all of our schools. We reimburse schools for busing to be able to bring the students. We provide them with lunch. Our student success services in our departments, they set up tables to talk to students about majors, the services that are offered on campus. We really work with our visitor center really closely, and they're super gracious and wonderful to offer campus tours for our students. And then we set up each of our courses that are offered. The faculty come and they set up and they do a live class and interaction with the students on that day, so that they can see them face to face also, instead of just on Zoom. So we really love that day. We usually have around 350 to 400 students come to campus on that day, and it's probably my favorite day of the entire year.
I can see why it would be. I'm a big fan of campus visits too. I like what you said about they don't think it's a real place, and then getting to experience that just has to be amazing for students who've never been on a campus or at UK. Okay, we're running short on time. I have just a couple of more questions that I wanted to make sure that we touched on now before we wind up. First of all, I'm just going to give you a couple of questions together, and then you can finish up with that in your final words. But I'd like to hear a little bit about how you're measuring success. It seems like UK has made a huge investment just from the institution side in this program. And so I'm sure that you all are keeping tabs on how you're measuring success and how successful the program has been. And then I know also that you have some ideas about where this program might go in the next few years. So if you could just give us an idea about how we're measuring success, what you're seeing, and what you hope to see in the next few years.
Yeah, thank you for that question. That was really important for us to know that we were doing work that's impactful for students, families, and schools. So, really, for us, for measuring success on the student level, there's a couple of ways that we do that. So, one of the easiest ways is to look at our pass rates of our classes, how students are doing in our courses, especially keeping tabs on that, considering how wide we open the door for dual credit. So each year we review student outcomes and grades in that way. 85 to 92% of students who are taking our courses are earning A's and B's. And so we have a very, very, very slim margin of students who do not pass our courses. I think it's like 2%. So students are doing exceptionally well academically in our courses. Beyond that, we wanted to see if participating in our program was really affecting how they're thinking about themselves as college students, and how their aspirations in terms of college. And so each year at the end of every semester, we do a survey with our students about their college going attitudes, those kind of things. We did a report around 2 years ago that analyzed all of that data. And by far, students are, by participating in our courses, having interactions with faculty, they're gaining a lot of self-efficacy. They're seeing themselves being able to handle college courses. They're being able to see themselves on 4-year campuses, on 2-year campuses. They're making decisions about, oh, I didn't think UK was a place that I could go to and that I would be able to do well at, and I do now. Beyond that, I do site visits every year, and I speak to students. And it's one of the my highlights of last year was I went to a school to visit, and a student was taking our college algebra course, and she was smiling. And I said, "Why are you smiling? Why are you so happy?" She said, "Well, I never thought that I was good at math. I didn't think that I could pass a class. And for the first time ever, I have an A in a math class, and it's a college class." And she was so proud of herself. And I could just see the joy and the confidence that she had gained through doing our coursework. So that's one way we measure it. On the school side, we measure by looking at our professional development, feedback from our professional development. Schools each year propose plans for what they're going to do to increase dual enrollment in their schools, as well as how they're going to grow in deeper learning. And so we work through their action plans for those kind of things. Going forward, I think those are the things we want to continue to measure. Are our schools moving forward? Are they growing the numbers of students that they're putting into dual credit? And are they investing in deeper learning? And are our students continuing to be successful? As long as we're doing that, we'll continue to grow. I don't know, as long as we can take new schools and we have the capacity to do it with fidelity, we will. One day we'll reach our cap, but for now, we continue to take schools and want schools to join us to grow if they're really invested in really moving dual credit and deeper learning along in their buildings.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Naoma. And we'll be sure to include your contact information in the follow-up email to the webinar in case anyone is interested in partnering with you or wants to learn more about UK's next generation scholars dual credit program. So thank you again for being here today. And we really appreciate all the insights.
All right. Thank you for having me.
All right, we're going to move along now and hear from another dual credit program in Kentucky. And this one is in Hardin County's EC3 Center. Dan Robbins is joining us. Dan is the principal of the EC3 Center. He is a proud graduate of Western Kentucky University with a Bachelor of Science in Business and Marketing Education. He also has a master's in counseling, a rank 1 in school leadership, administration, and superintendency. And interestingly, he also has an additional master's in special education from Spalding University. So a lot of different angles to think about just in terms of your education. He is married to his lovely wife, Emily, who is also a special educator in Hardin County. So it's a family, I guess, a family affair. Seems like things come in threes for Mr. Robbins. Mr. Robbins, I guess we would call H3. His daughters are H3. It's got Haley and Hannah and Harper. And his commitment to Hardin County is amazing. He's been there for his entire career at Central Hardin, Bluegrass Middle, North Hardin, and now leading at the EC3 Center. So, Mr. Robbins, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us today.
Yeah, thanks, Rob. I'm very excited to be able to share information about what we're doing here in Hardin County.
Yeah, yeah. So I know that the EC3 Center is very different from what Naoma has just talked about with UK's Next Generation Scholar Program. So if you could just kind of give us a little history and a little bit about the structure of EC3. What's it all about?
Yeah, well, the Early College and Career Center, which is our long name, right? Our short name has become EC3. We started back in 2014, and it really was a vision from our former superintendent, Miss Nanette Johnston. And I really think that she dreamt this up probably at night and woke up one morning and said, it's time. And it was really cool to watch the entire process of it all. And our process really started with community. I know that Naomi talked about that as well. Our community was a huge influence on saying that we need to do something different in our district and offer to our children. And so she, if you ask her, she'll tell you that EC3 was birthed on the back of a bus, a school bus, because they literally put community members on a school bus, and they went around to different places in Kentucky to look at models that we wanted to kind of imitate a little bit, and then obviously create our own uniqueness within it. But that's where it all came, and we were very lucky to start here in Hardin County. We were some great partners going all the way back to a community group called the North Education Foundation that was here now called Central Kentucky Community Foundation, working with Western Kentucky University, sold the land to Hardin County Schools for $1. And we all know that that is unheard of these days, right? Land is probably the biggest barrier in cost for a lot of school districts to do expansion projects. But we were able to be given the land here for $1, and here we are, the 11 years later, sitting with EC3, which is fantastic because our proximity to our primary partner, Elizabethtown Community Technical College, we're within walking distance.
Yeah, I don't get tired of hearing that story about this former superintendent having this nighttime vision of what it would be, and then the community partners, the land for $1. That's a really amazing story. I love how you talk about how the district is so invested in this center. You said we don't allow roadblocks here. So talk a little bit about that, about how the district is so invested in the center and how you bring in like an open door, like Naoma mentioned.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, obviously, it goes way back to the very beginning where our district said we want to do something. We want to give our kids opportunities within the career and technical model, which was our primary foundation and still is our primary foundation here at EC3. We knew that trying to replicate, we have 3 high schools in our district, Central Hardin, John Hardin, North Hardin. We knew the cost was a huge barrier to be able to try to replicate that amongst 3 schools. And so our board, being very innovative, said, let's build one center. Let's bring our schools together and allow our kids to come here. Now, we are not fortunate enough to have an area technology center like a lot of our districts in our state have. And so our kids at that time were using Elizabethtown Community Technical College. Kind of people think back, I'm old now, so we think about this. We called it the SEEK program, right, where we sent kids over to the college. They took career and technical programs, but there was no oversight. Whose responsibility was it? The high school? Was it someone at the college? Our kids got lost in the shuffle, and they weren't successful. So EC3, pulling resources together, allowed for us to build a career and technical center with partnership with Elizabethtown Community Technical College, where we could give our kids a head start in the career and technical field, and then after that, go on and can finish their 2-year degree at ECTC. So we started that, again, removing roadblocks. We know that there is a cost associated with the dual credit model. Very, very excited about what the state of Kentucky has done in allowing, the work ready scholarship of starting their freshman year and getting 2 classes. But, our district, when we wanted to expand and do this academy program, which is something I'm really going to talk a lot about in this webinar, our district said that we're not going to have roadblocks for students that might be underrepresented or lacking the funding needed to take on the dual credit model at a cost. Even though the cost is 50% now, our district pays for students who are free and reduced lunch. So if they're on that program, then our district pays for the cost for them to do the academy program, taking on a dual credit for their junior and senior year.
Yeah, yeah. I love how you've just tried to make this so accessible to students. So you said you were going to talk a little bit about the academy model. Let's talk now about what makes your early college model innovative compared to other kind of traditional dual credit models. You've already talked a little bit about, you didn't say this entirely, but about your partnership with Elizabethtown, and how do you decide what courses or what pathways to offer? Tell us a little bit more about how it's designed.
Well, ECTC is very important in this entire focus with what we do, and I know she's on here today, so I'll give her a shout out. Natalie Taylor is their dual credit coordinator over there. Phenomenal, fantastic. We've dealt with a lot of different dual credit coordinators over there, and she's outstanding. But what they do is they work with us. Our goal in our academy program is to allow students to get an associate's degree while in high school. So they start their junior year. And to do that, our focus is on the gen ed. I mean, we know that the first 2 years is that focus. Obviously, career exploration is part of it as well. We want to make sure that students are getting the courses they need to finish that 4-year degree. And so another person in their building over there, Sandra Kimberlane, works at their transfer center. And so we work with students individually. We know that the college process is very individual. I've got two of my older daughters right now, graduates of college already, and in their plans that they went to school were individualized. I mean, they found the courses they needed. We know that there are scripted courses you have to have, but some courses they get to pick and choose from. And so we work with students to help them pick the courses they need to finish the 2-year degree that then aligns with a 4-year college in the state of Kentucky. That's what we want. We want to keep them in the state of Kentucky for the most part. We know they get to pick where they go. But we work with them to help them find the courses they need to be successful. Now, the first 2 semesters, their fall and spring semester of their junior year, is very scripted. Taking English 101 and 102 and public speaking and, history course, humanities and such. And what makes us very unique is with our partnership with ECTC, they send us those professors. So, I know Naomi talked about, having those relationships with professors. That's huge. It is one of the biggest pieces of this puzzle. And the professors that we have right now that have been teaching these courses have been with us for several years. We consider them to be part of our staff. They're not on our payroll, which is a great financial decision that we have here in Hardin County Schools. They're on ECTC's payroll. But they come and they work in our building and they teach their traditional college classes to our students, only to our students, on a traditional college schedule. And so our students get to know them very well. They build these lasting relationships. They often choose to take those professors for courses into their senior year and things like that. So it's huge in the importance factor. The 2 teachers that do belong to Hardin County Schools are English and math. And so I have Mr. Caleb Ernst as our English teacher and Miss Shawnee Thompson as our math teacher. And so our kids take English and math, which are obviously required courses for graduation in the state of Kentucky. So they stay with us in those classes. So we are assured, again, high school graduation is number one, but the associate's degree is obviously a close second.
Yeah, I love the emphasis that you place on careful advising and, planning about where the students want to eventually land and where they plan to go. I know that at EC3 that you have a lot of partnerships with employers and industry who support and provide opportunities for work-based experiences. I know there's a huge conversation in Kentucky right now about work-based experiences. Can you talk a little bit about what your students have access to there?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we serve over 10 programs here at EC3 under that current technical model. And obviously, we're doing dual credit in 8 of those. But the additional partnership that we have with our local community, again, going back all the way prior to 2014 when we opened our doors, all those community members being on that bus, they were very excited about what we were doing, but they wanted to be invested in our students from the very beginning. Again, we're about community here, and we know, once kids go off to school, they get to choose where they want to spend their adult lives. But we have a huge group of kids that are coming back to our area after they go to college. And part of that is because those relationships that they're forming during those senior year while doing their co-op/internship experience to work-based learning, if we want to just call it that. But our internship model that we do is very different because we don't just I've seen co-op programs where kids might find a job in some organizations that don't really land to what we would call a career, but our internships do. And so our kids are working and they have to interview in these companies. They then earn that position and then they go and they work. And that company has been dedicated to helping the kids really learn the intricacies of their business so that they are using them as a recruiting tool. So when those kids go off and they finish maybe their advanced engineering degree, maybe in the health career field, Baptist Health is a huge partner within this community. Those students are coming back to work. So one of our early students was an engineering student in our program, did the 2 years, went off to University of Kentucky, got engineering degree. But while in high school, he worked at Alltech and now is here working at Alltech as an engineer. And guess what? He is now the mentor for our new students that are coming through. So again, this is a community building community. And so those partnerships that we have, we do not take them for granted. It is what we thrive on here at EC3.
Yeah, when you can find a system that's mutually beneficial, it's helpful to the students as they're developing and getting their education, but then helpful to those businesses when they have good recruits coming back and wanting to serve in the community. That's kind of a beautiful recipe there. I know that you have mentioned a little bit about some of the students, but I'm curious about what is the vision for success for students who graduate from EC3? Like, what do you hope for them? And, kind of what are you seeing? Are you all measuring that very intentionally? Or, do you have a system for tracking students and their success?
Yeah, I mean, we're definitely keeping up with kids as they graduate, as they go on to their 4-year post-secondary institutions. Right now, statistically, we've been looking at it. Over 90% of the students that graduate from our program and go on to a 4-year school are graduating with 4-year degrees, which is huge, right? I mean, we know statistically, if you look at that number across the nation, it's much lower than that. And so we know that our students, once they get these credits in their back pocket, they're going on to finish these degrees. Our students in our program average a 3.75 GPA. Now, we do look at ACT score to get in. There is a benchmark measure that we are using. Obviously, GPA does factor in, but we do look at it a little bit. And part of our belief is that high school, for the most part, is pretty easy. I mean, kids are able to get very nice GPAs in regular high school classes. So we're looking to continue to push the rigor. And so we're looking for students with that combo of high GPA, high ACT scores. But it's not the highest of ACT scores. Often, we don't necessarily always get those kids. We're getting those kids that we might consider to be that hardworking student. Maybe they're getting, 21, 22 on their ACT, average score, but, they have to work for it. And so we're definitely looking and tracking those kids. We want to see them again. It is huge for us to watch and see these kids come back to our community, become, business people in this community working. And then, maybe even one day their own children, coming and walking the floor, through the halls of EC3.
Yeah.
I think about one girl right now in particular, Abby, and I'll just call her Abby. She's 24 years old. This young lady was in our program, did come under that model for free and reduced lunch, single parent home. This girl was a first gen student. So she came through. A lot of mentoring for her in the program. She was successful, very hardworking kid. This student is a nurse in our community working at Baptist, 24 years of age. She's been working for 3 years, okay, as a nurse. So she started at 21, and is now about to finish her nurse practitioner. So again, these are the kind of stories. She is a mentor to our health science program, comes in and spends time. We know how busy nurses are, but when she gets a couple of days off a week, she comes in and spends time going over stuff with our future nurses here, doing clinical stuff and doing checkoff for skills. I mean, those are things that are just kind of immeasurable. She doesn't have to do that. She has a newborn at home now, and so I'm just like, Abby, what are you doing? She's like, I'm just trying to get back. I'm just trying to get back. And so, phenomenal heart about her. We didn't develop that heart, but I would say that we probably helped to just nurture it a little bit. And so we're just excited that she sees us and views us as a part of her story.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. We're going to wind up our conversation. I have just a couple more things that I'd love for you to talk a little bit about. And I'm just going to kind of give rapid fire questions, and then you can talk about what you want to. But I have just a couple of things. One is, I know that you've built this program from the ground up, and I'm wondering what advice you would give to others who are just starting out. If they're imagining something like an EC3 center, but they don't know where to start, what advice would you give to them? And then also just kind of, where do you see EC3 in the future? Like, where are you going? What's next?
Oh, well, first thing I would say is when we started doing some of these things, there were some people that were saying, we talked about our dual credit model, and we didn't start that in 2014. We grew into that, and so we waited. We wanted to make sure that we were primed perfectly for it. We needed some things to happen in our community to make it all happen. And I'll say Dr. Justin Pate, who's the president of ECTC, is a visionary, and he was very wide open to saying, what do we need to do to make this happen? So you have to find a partner like that, and I know obviously our KCTCS model, they're all over the place, but they're not our only partner. We partner here locally with ECTC, but we also partner with JCTC. We partner with BCTC. These are schools that are not, in our back door. We partner with WKU. We partner with EKU. So we are not exclusive to one. We go and we try to find where's the opportunity for our students. Number one, they are the priority. So I'll tell anybody, just go knock on doors. You got to go ask the questions, even though maybe it hasn't been open before. Go find out. So I'll say that this is not exclusive to us just because of who we are and where we're at. I think it can happen anywhere. The second thing that I would say regarding building this type of program is when we decided to start with our career and technical side, we were very heavy in the community finding out what were the jobs, and then once we figured out what the job market was going to look like, we went to our kids and we polled our kids, what jobs would you be interested in? Would you pursue these? Because if we started a welding program that we know it's in high demand still in our area, but our kids weren't interested in it, then it wasn't going to work. So, we had to make sure that those things married up. So listen to your students. They'll tell you, right? We are an elective-based program, right? Our classes are electives. If kids don't sign up, then they go away. I speak from that as a former business and marketing teacher. When I first got started, there were 9 of us as business and marketing teachers in our business department, and we trickled down to 3 because kids stopped signing up for classes. They were looking for other opportunities. So you got to listen. All right, you got to pay attention to that. So those are going to probably be the biggest things that I would say in trying to figure out how to start the program. And then obviously you got to have a board of education that's ready to pour the funds in to make it happen. Money was much cheaper back then, right? We know that we spent just about $18 million to build our 70,000 square foot facility with equipment. And these days now, if you try to do it, that's going to probably cost you 4 times as much, if not more. So we're already seeing that in our expansion project as we're trying to do. So it's difficult, but you got to find ways to make it happen. So that's some of the biggest stuff I'll speak on. And then the other thing is I never want to be a politician. I don't envision myself to ever be a politician, but I talk to our politicians a lot. So I thank them, one, for what they're doing to help our students get dual credit in the state. We don't see that everywhere, right? We know that we're using a lot of those lottery funds to kind of help foster these types of programs. But one of the things I continue to stay on them about is taking a look, one, at our KEYS money. We got to continue to make college affordable. And I think that KEYS has not had a boost in quite a while, right? So, kids are earning $500 for each year of high school. So, great, $2,000, maybe a bonus pop from ACT and things like that. But it's a drop in the bucket. The other side of the thing that I experienced as a parent, like I said, I have 2 daughters who have already graduate high school or graduate college after finishing this program. They came through this program, and then they went to college for less than 4 years. So they left some of the money on the table because they weren't allowed to use it from the colleges because that's the rules that KEYS money has in place. I think we got to put the power back in our students' hand, and our students should have the option to say, hey, I'm in my last semester. I have a degree plan. I have a graduation plan on track here with this university. Can I use the remainder of my KEYS funds to pay for this? Or can I use it to pay for a master's degree, some advanced degree? But those aren't options yet. So I talk to my legislators here locally a lot, and I tell them, hey, I'll come talk, speak to people, but we got to do something because that money gets left on the table, and it's not fair to our kids. And obviously, we need to be doing something different there. So those are a couple of my last things. A little bit of a soapbox there for me, but I won't stop advocating for kids ever.
Mr. Robbins, thank you so much for the conversation today. We really appreciate and respect the work you're doing there at EC3 and the conversation that we've had today. Really appreciate you.
Thank you for having me.
All right, we're going to go into the final stretch now, and we'd like to invite Dr. Carol Christian into the room. Dr. Christian has many years of experience in teaching and administration in K-12 and in higher ed. She's been a teacher, a coach, an athletic director, you name it. She's pretty much done it. Principal, author, assistant professor, and now the director of the Craft Academy. She has been recognized with numerous awards as a teacher and administrator, and has actually written some books about studying transitions, where she's looked at transitions from elementary to middle, from middle to high, and even from high school to college. So she has a lot of experience and knowledge about the topics that we're going to be talking about today. She currently serves as the founding director of the Craft Academy for Excellence in Science and Mathematics at Morehead State University. So welcome to the webinar, Dr. Christian, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
So I'd like to kick off our discussion, kind of like we did the other two, with you sharing just a brief version of the Craft Academy, its structure, and kind of the vision behind it.
Sure. The Craft Academy is a dual credit residential opportunity, so that probably separates it from the others. We have found, and if you look at research, oftentimes if you can get students living with each other in living and learning communities, that takes their thinking to an even higher level. Having been a coach in my past life, sometimes you can have a good player, but if they're on a team that they're not quite to the level of that caliber of player, it's hard to see that talent coming out of that. And so getting these high performing students in a residential setting just takes their thinking to a higher level. And so we are a residential opportunity. Kids are selected at the end of grade 10, and those that are selected enter the academy their junior and senior year. They come on campus, and we keep an eye on making sure that they complete their high school graduation requirements, but at the same time, they will graduate with 60 to 72 college credit hours. This program was started to replenish kids going into STEM careers as a nation. We have suffered kids going into science. And so that's why a lot of these STEM academies have started. I personally see math in everything beyond just being a doctor or a technician in technology, but that's how our program started. It started because also the legislators supported Gatton Academy at Western, but many families in the East that had the opportunity to go there realized that's a 5.5 hour drive away to send my 16-year-old. So that began the discussion with higher beings that let's get an academy going in the East and give those kids more access, opportunity, and option. And that's where we are.
Yeah. I love hearing your stories about how you think about recruitment of students, especially from Eastern Kentucky, that region, but also statewide. So if you don't mind, tell us a little bit about how you recruit students and what approach you take to who should come to the Craft Academy.
Right. It's more of a challenge sometimes to go into districts where barriers are great. I was in the highly skilled educator program, and there are different regions in our state that, let's face it, there are barriers to recruit teachers into an area that there's not a lot going on. The living conditions, the apartments are not there. So it's a challenge for those districts. And so when they go to apply, there are gaps in their curriculum. And so we've tried to counter that with not lowering the bar by any means, but providing resources to bring them up. To get into Craft Academy and Gatton Academy, you have to have a 3.0 and above GPA. You have to have completed Algebra 1, Geometry, and Algebra 2 by the end of grade 10. And you had to have taken the ACT and received a 22 or better in the math and an 18 or better on the English. So some of the barriers that we've uncovered as we work with districts, particularly in the East, many do not offer Algebra 2 until grade 11. So those kids have been dead in the water. Gatton is 9 years out ahead of us. We have graduated 9 classes, but we realized those kids can't even apply because of a curriculum alignment issue. So as we go out and recruit, we also get a collaborative approach. We work with the counselors, and before you know it, they go to the curriculum instructional supervisors in their districts. And so they're now more and more getting Algebra 2 pushed down to grade 10 so those kids can apply. We also have realized that there are STEM careers like nursing that don't require higher levels of math beyond Algebra 2. So we did a pilot program to counter that. Some people may say you're lowering the bar, but I'm saying we're meeting the needs of society. Nurses are in great demand. And if Algebra 2 is where they go, then we brought in some students that didn't have Algebra 2, but they got it here on campus, and they are successfully moving forward and going to be out in the workforce, rather quickly. Now, those obviously who want to become a doctor or in engineering, they're going to have to take our highest level of math classes. So we're serving, the workforce needs and trying to replenish kids into high-level STEM careers.
Yeah. In our previous conversation, one of my favorite quotes was, you said, if students knew how to get in, they would go. And you were, talking about supporting students maybe who are first generation college goers, or some of those students that we've talked about today who maybe don't understand how to navigate college expectations and college systems. And so, it seems like having that approach with kind of an elite experience academy like the one that you run is really beautiful. Could you tell us the story about how, when you go into a school, who do you ask for? Like, who do you want to talk to?
Okay. Counselors, knowing the criteria, will often say, I've met with my gifted and talented students. We have 60 in our group, and there's 10 that would like to meet with you. Mm-hmm. And I like to meet with all the students. Give me all of grade 10. And principals, I've been a principals and counselors will say, but not all of those kids even have the criteria to apply. And I say, well, trust me on this. It could flop, but give me all 200 of them in an auditorium, because I like to, as an educator, speak to all groups. And so I go through the criteria and I say to the kids, don't raise your hand, but just say to yourself, check, I got that. So I said, if you have a 3.0 or above GPA, say to yourself, check. Do I have Algebra 1? Check. Geometry? Check. Algebra 2? Check. Now, if along that journey you haven't checked anything, then this is your wake-up call to be ready, because opportunities in life come flying in any given moment, and you've just realized, I'm not ready. So go to your counselors and say, what do I need to do to get ready? It can be a wake-up call for kids. And I say that truly from my heart. I've had kids come down and say, I really want this program. I have a 1.8 GPA, but I know I can do it. And I said, son, you heard from my initial assembly, the door may have closed for you for this opportunity, but what you're learning from this assembly is I got to go and I got to get ready. It's a wake up call for those kids. We have athletes, and I was the first female athletic director in the state of Kentucky. My brothers had full scholarships. I know how important that is. But there are many kids that have the academic criteria to accept one of these scholarships, but they still want to play football. So they're gambling at 5'9" tall that I really want to go to UK. And one, you don't know if UK is going to make you an offer. Go talk to your coaches. Am I football scholarship potential? You might find out that you are not. But then you stay in high school just because you love the game and you're passing up a $50,000 plus scholarship. We just want our kids to be informed consumers. Sometimes I find schools will limit, like I said, the group that comes to me, or coaches will say, you don't want that, you want to stay here, play football. But if college could be their ticket to a life-altering career, football may not be that. So I say, let's open up our doors and let all of our kids know about access, opportunity, and option, because that assembly might, bring some kids around to wake up.
Yeah, yeah. I like how your approach speaks to all kids, not just the ones who might eventually end up in your academy. So let's talk a lot about what does success look like for students in your programs beyond college credit accumulation. I know you said they can get 60 or 70 hours of credit as they go through the academy, and I know that it's primarily focused on STEM careers. But what kinds of things are you tracking about students, and what are you seeing in the outcomes?
Okay. We want to get them involved in research. So as our professors, many of them have doctorates or they're authoring books or articles. So when our kids get engaged with our professors on the research that they're doing or an article that they are writing, if that professor's research allows them to present in Atlanta, Georgia, we send our kid with that professor and they can learn how to present at a conference. We've had professors' research get accepted in Tokyo, Japan, and Hawaii, and we sent our student with that professor for those experiences. We had a robotics team compete at an international competition in the Netherlands. Those are just opportunities that our high schools, do not have the money for. And so those are some of the unique opportunities. And our kids are being co-authors at an early age. So that helps them to the next level. It helps them in attaining scholarships once they leave Craft Academy. We have kids that they can either elect to stay at Moorhead to complete their undergraduate degree, or there is some continued scholarship money that can follow them wherever they want to go. And that is sponsored by the Kraft family. And so we have 4 students in Harvard right now, 1 at University of Chicago, 1 at MIT, 3 at Georgia Tech, 333 in Huntsville, Alabama, or some space-related program. And many of these kids from East Kentucky saying, this opportunity would have never been afforded to me had I not left home and come to Craft Academy. There's so many wonderful STEM programs happening in our high schools, but also having been a school administrator for many of our kids, the best thing that we can do for them is get them out of the home life. Now that's those who have a really sad situation at home, but there are some kids that have a very wonderful foundation at home, but just getting around kids who think like them takes their thinking to a higher level.
You mentioned the amazing financial benefits. Can you talk a little bit more about that? So how does a student get in? How do they pay for this experience?
Right.
And then what kind of support do they continue to receive?
Well, if they accept this experience, it's a 2-year full ride, tuition, room and board, and a meal plan. They won't get billed for anything. The only thing they need money for is if they want an extra pizza or different things like that. The activities that we do with kids, we have STEM speakers come in. Those are free. We do a lot of fun things for the kids too, because they are under 18. So being in sororities and fraternities are not open to them. Those things are usually free. We take an international trip abroad. Now that does cost students, but I do have a small budget where some money can be applied toward families that could be a barrier. So we've gone to Germany and Switzerland, Spain, Italy, Ireland. We're going to Iceland next year. And again, for many kids who've never been on a plane or out of Kentucky or out of Breathitt County, as an example. It just changes the lens in which they view the world. They begin to see the world and careers differently. Now, we want our kids to imagine, invent, and impact Kentucky. We want to keep this intellectual property and impact our Kentucky workforce. However, even the Kraft family, they've gone beyond Kentucky. His home base and his business is out of Oklahoma, but look at how he's giving back to Kentucky. So wherever in the world our kids are going to go, we want them to give back. And we are tracking the data. I think the gentleman that spoke right before me had a good idea. High schools ought to be tracking. We ought to want to know where our graduates are going. And so at the end of this year, we will have graduated 10 classes, and we're going to be producing a document that says, where are they now? What are they doing? High schools have access to a program called Clearinghouse, that once they graduate from your high school, it tells you if they went on to college and what they are doing, or if they graduated or not. But it doesn't tell you once they graduated from, let's say, UK, where are they now? We're tracking that data because right now, off the top of my head, we have 8 in medical school, 2 with pharmacy degrees, 2 with law degrees. One kid's working on his doctorate as a physicist. Our high schools ought to want to know, what are the outcomes? It's not just, as you talked and I talked the other day, check the box and I've taught my content and put it on the transcript, but it's like, where are they? Yeah. Let's celebrate that.
100%. All right, Dr. Christian, we are bumping up against the end of our time together. Do you have any final words for the folks who are on our webinar today of encouragement or just inspiration?
Well, I commend you for this program because it's all about access, opportunity, and options. Let's not limit kids from knowing about these things. You know, sometimes it's been a barrier that superintendents sometimes say, we've got a great STEM dual credit program. We don't need to have you come in and do an assembly. Please don't limit. It ought to be the students and the family's option to either stay in my high school and do the dual credit or go to a residential opportunity or, you know, those kind of programs. Give them the freedom for access, opportunity, and option. And I appreciate you doing that.
Yes, thank you so much. All right, well, we want to wrap up today's program with just a few announcements. Thank you all for sticking with us for the duration. I think we've had an opportunity to see 3 really different types of early college models today, and that can serve all kinds of different students in different contexts. So just really appreciate the conversation. So thank you so much to our incredible guests for sharing their expertise and shining a light on this power of early college models here in Kentucky. Your insights on the statewide outcomes and district implementation and the student experiences have just given us so much to think about as we continue to expand opportunities for students across the Commonwealth. So also a big thank you to everybody who's joined today. We're working hard to open doors for students so that they can be ready for both college and career. You know, early college models are especially powerful when they're aligned with Kentucky's high demand and emerging career sectors like advanced manufacturing and healthcare and aviation. You've heard about all of those today. We want our students to graduate and step into meaningful careers. And so we want to make them accessible to all students as our panelists have discussed today. So as you're thinking about next steps, continue to think about how dual credit and early college models can be a bridge to help connect your students not only to college credit, but also to Kentucky's high demand careers that can help them earn a living wage and give them a satisfying and long lasting career. As a reminder, a recording of today's webinar, along with any resources that have been mentioned, will be shared with you, and we'll follow up about any questions or comments that came in the chat. Please feel free to pass these along and share them with colleagues who might benefit from the conversation. I wanted to leave you with a couple of announcements. First of all, that our next webinar in this series will be on October 21st, and we'll welcome Jessica Fletcher, and we'll dive into Kentucky's high demand and emerging career sectors and how students can explore and access those careers through the Futurity platform. You don't want to miss this. There's also a link in the chat box inviting you to CPE's first ever Student Access Summit in November. All the information is on the website, so if you follow that link, you can get all the information and register. We hope to see you there. And finally, we would love to hear your feedback. So please complete the survey that you can access using the QR code that's on your screen. This is a way for you to also receive an ELA certificate. There's a question on there that you can click that you would like to receive an ELA certificate for participating in today's webinar. Thanks again for your time and commitment to students. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. We'll see you in October to continue our conversations about how to support Kentucky students through education, engagement, and employment. Have a great day.